Hoop Heads podcast is brought to you by Head Start Basketball.
I cared so much about making it to D1 that's what drove me, and I think I didn't know if I was good enough. I never thought I was good enough. I still probably look back and go, I'm not the all-time leading scorer. There's no way that happened, but it happened, and it just became, it became something that I think I just out-suffered people and was able to build my game and build my career on just the work that I could put in and obsessed basketball player that I was. I was just going to do whatever it took.
Trevor Huffman is the all-time leading scorer at Kent State University with 1,820 career points. He led the Golden Flashes to the 2002 NCAA Tournament Elite 8. Trevor then embarked on a 13-year professional basketball career that took him to Germany, Poland, Belgium, Venezuela, and France, plus 2 tryouts in the NBA. From founding real estate companies at the age of 23 to developing fitness startups at 38, Trevor is currently writing at trevorhuffman.com about how his story of hoops and business are connected and why inspiring people is bringing meaning to his own life. Trevor is the co-owner of HoopsLink Fitness LLC, a startup aimed at getting adults fit, training, practicing, and working out like a professional basketball player in a positive, encouraging team setting. During this conversation, Trevor talks about growing up with the game, overcoming the odds as a borderline D1 recruit, his experience at Kent State, the best stories of his pro career, why writing is so important to him today, and his adult basketball fitness venture, HoopsLink. Let's jump right into our conversation with Trevor Huffman.
Hello and welcome to the Hoop Heads podcast. It's Mike Klinzing here with my co-host Jason Sunkel, and today we have a very special guest with us, Trevor Huffman, the all-time leading scorer at Kent State University. Trevor, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
No, we are very appreciative of you taking the time out of your schedule to jump on with us, and we're going to start out going back to your childhood and ask you how you got started in the game of basketball. What's your earliest memory of the game, and what got you hooked on it?
Oh man, that's a good question. My dad and my uncle Jamie, it's kind of a family affair, but my earliest memories are playing at the farm, our Huffman farm. My grandpa was a farmer, and my uncle played basketball at Michigan State with Magic Johnson. And I was not born yet, but I was at the game. I was in my mom's belly. I was just kind of chilling. So I met Magic indirectly,
Nice.
as a unborn child. And I think that was like my first introduction to hoops. And then, my uncle was kind of like this savant, like this weird basketball trainer, and like he had like a national championship. So of course everybody in our family, would talk about Jamie, and my dad would tell me stories about playing with Magic. So as a kid, I just heard all these stories of, what our family would do to go play basketball. I mean, my uncle transferred from Homer, Michigan, which is like a small city with one stoplight. I think it's the pig hog capital of the world, by the way. Side fun
Nice.
fact for you guys.
There we go.
That's huge. That's huge for Homer that I'm plugging their hog.
Nice. Well, if there's any hog farmers out there, you got a lot to live up to, man.
Hog sales just went up 10%.
Somebody's making money on pork bellies out there.
So yeah, they my dad was he played at Michigan State as a freshman, and then he transferred to Albion. So we just kind of had this basketball background, and then I remember being around the game as a kid. My uncle would like throw kick over a rack of balls and he'd be like, go shoot these goddamn balls, Trevor. And oh wait, am I allowed to swear on this? Or is this
Hey man, if we have to bleep you, we will, man.
Yeah, we can work it out. Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
all right. I imagine there's kids listening to this. So, but back in the day, like my uncle and Al and all my family on that side, they were all like huge cussers. So you'd go play basketball with them, it would just be
you get an education early as a young kid, and what the words you were supposed to say when you missed.
Very early, and basketball is as you guys know, it's a very heated competitive sport. So we would get into one-on-one games at Christmas, Thanksgiving, 3-on-3, like all the old uncles that are about as old as me now, but they're all like pot-bellied men, and they would just be posting me up, one time I think I scored a game point. My uncle called a charge on me in 1-on-1. I was like, that's never been done. That's actually illegal.
You can't do that in a pickup game.
No, and there's just so many stories with that side of my family, especially. When I was in Germany, even my uncle came over. He tried to play 1-on-1 with one of my pro players before a game, and he broke his nose. He actually broke the guy's nose.
It's like a Meet the Parents style, right?
Oh God, I was so embarrassed. I was like, I can't even let you on the bus on the way home. He rode on the bus on the way there, and then I was like, Jamie, you gotta go on the fan bus on the way back. This is too much. So that was it. Yeah, just family gatherings, and we just early on. My dad was a high school coach, and I was just always around the game.
So, what other sports did you play besides basketball growing up?
One of my first sport was actually soccer. So I grew up playing travel soccer right from the get-go. I grew up around Flint, Michigan, and we had a big, it was called the Genesee Stars travel soccer team, and it was huge. Huge travel team. We'd go to Kentucky, we'd go to Maumee, we'd go to all these travel tournaments. So I thought that I was going to be Pele at one point in my life as a kid. I used to oil my copamundals. I used to put a rubber band on them to keep the tongue, so the tongue folded over on the shoe. Yeah. Any soccer guys out there will know what I'm talking about. It was a religion to me to take care of my soccer shoes. So that was my first sport. And the only sport I ever won a state championship in, ironically, is soccer, which is hilarious because I really gave up on the sport. I just showed up and I didn't put any work into it, but I had such a long, from my childhood on of playing, it was actually a pretty natural sport for me.
So you continued to play all the way through high school?
Yep, played all the way through high school. Had offers to play Olympic development soccer. I got a few partial scholarships. So there's not a ton of. I don't know. Soccer's a weird sport to me. I just never knew how would anyone find me, because there's no where are the scholarships? At that point it just kind of became harder. I would have had to travel more for Olympic development, and that would have taken away from basketball. So I decided just to stick with basketball in high school.
All right. So my question to you about, you were talking about scholarships and stuff. Talk a little bit about high school. What was high school like where you were, and talk about how it affected your decision making going to choosing Kent State for basketball.
Let me back you up. Nobody wanted any part of me in high school other than D3, D2 school. So I was essentially a diamond, the diamond in the rough cliche. I came out of high school. We had really good high school team. My backcourt mate, the reason I started playing basketball is I met him, and he was one of my best friends. My parents were getting divorced at that time, so I was essentially I had my brothers were frayed. My older brother left to go with my dad. My little brother was 6, so I couldn't talk to him. So I essentially became best friends with this kid, John Flynn. It turns out we had the same birthday party, and we played basketball every single day. I mean, I don't remember a day that we didn't play basketball together from 8th grade on, and that kind of formed this camaraderie, this brotherhood, and we got to the Final Four 2 years in a row, but nobody was really talking. No Division I's came knocking, and I went to All-American. I tried to exposure camps, blue chip camps. I was shamelessly promoting myself, much like I am on this podcast. So, and then nobody really wanted me, and I got an invite to the only trophy I've kept are championship trophies, and one of the trophies I've kept throughout my life is the Wendy's Classic All-Star Game. I don't know if you guys know about. I don't even know if it's still going around. It's like the poor man's McDonald's All-American Game, because that's what I had to be in. I was in the Wendy's. Yeah, they were give this guy a Frosty and some fries, and I had to try out to make this team. Mike, I mean, I don't know how you were probably a big time recruit.
I was not a big time.
I'm sure you weren't.
I was not a big time recruit. Trust me.
Jason, is he lying? He tells me he wasn't, and now I look at his stats. He scored more points than me half his college career. So.
Well, all I can tell you is what I know about Mike, because sadly I was 6 years old when he was in college. or
Yeah,
going to
that's not
college.
good. Yeah, that's
so I don't really
just
know.
dated you, Mike.
That's right.
I know.
Trust me, man. Trust me.
So
I'm getting
Threw you
old.
under the bus.
all I know is that he talked about on like our first podcast that we did about how he went to these camps and really they were like telling him that they wanted these players and they wanted them in these spots, but there was no real spots there at all, right? Was that?
Yeah, I mean, my scenario, Trevor, is almost identical to yours in the sense of, I think that when I look back on what my recruitment was like, it was all Division III, it was all Division II. Those schools were after me, pretty hard, and Division I, there was really no interest. And so I've told this story before, but at Kent, they asked me to come down for a visit between, I think it was in the fall of my senior year, before the basketball season started. And I told them, yeah, I'll come down, but I don't want you to pay for the visit. I don't want it to count as one of my official visits, because I still thought at that point that I was getting a call from Carolina or Ohio State or Duke or whatever. So I had no idea. My parents didn't have any idea. I didn't have any idea. So I went down there, and I remember, speaking of Wendy's, I remember eating dinner with my mom during the recruiting visit. Her and I, left the coach's office after talking to the coaches and went over to Wendy's and had dinner that we paid for ourselves. And then, and so then after that, obviously they weren't very interested in me anymore, because I'm sure I was a borderline prospect at best. And then come the end of my senior year, with like 3 or 4 games left, I called them back and said, hey, are you, are you still interested? And thankfully they came out and saw me play once, and ended up that somebody transferred in the last minute, and I was the eighth freshman out of a class of 8. And so that's how I ended up at Kent. And
8 freshmen, that's a huge class.
Yeah, it was crazy, and only 3 of us made it. Only 3 of us made it for the entire 4 years. So I can relate to what the story that you're telling for sure. So I was not a big time recruit.
Yeah. I think I ran Coach Heck, Coach DeSempler, Coach Waters, and Coach Mance were the coaches at Kent State when I tried out for the Wendy's team. And so what the story is Coach Heck told me this was that one of the teams we beat in the state quarterfinals was Bridgeport, and they had a player that was had been a full ride D1 guy going to Marist. And the coach came down to Kent State's like team camp every year, and he told the coaches, he's like, hey, there's a guard in Michigan. He's the best guard in Michigan. He kept saying it everyone's like, yeah, right. Yeah, okay. Right. And he's not signed, right? And you're like, okay, yeah, I wouldn't believe that either.
Right, for sure.
And so they started calling all these people. Coach Heck said they called coaches, they called other college coaches in the state, and so they kind of did some background checks on me, and it all turned out really good. I'm a straight A student. Not really, but close enough. 3.5.
You were in range.
I was in range, and yeah. So they came up and watched me. I made the Wendy's team. I played really well in the summer. I played great, and they saw me play one of those games. I think I had like 20 points or 21 points against a Canadian team, which that's probably why I played so well. But no offense, Canada. And then after that, they were like, well, why don't you come down, and we're looking at a big kid from Russia. You're kind of like second on the list. And I was like, okay, great. I'll, I think came down, played with the guys. I remember playing one-on-one in the morning with Mike Perry and Andrew Mitchell, who I became really close with. And then I shot lights out in the open gym. And what they say is Andrew Mitchell, who's from Detroit East Catholic, and I saw him play. He hit a game-winning shot from 40 feet in the state championship game to win it. And I just remember being like, no way, this guy is unbelievable. I remember just watching him going, oh, this guy is unfreaking believable. And then the next day, then I'm playing against him the next year. And that just kind of blew my mind a little bit, because I just remember seeing him play and being amazed at how good he was. And so we went at it one-on-one, just going at it, and then he went in and told Coach Waters that they should sign me, and that was kind of like, I don't know if that was the last straw. I think something happened with the big kid from Russia, so that piece got moved, And luckily, they were like a week before school started. I didn't have my dorms. I had, my roommate was a guy named Randy that smoked. He was from Strongsville.
Hey,
Strongsville.
Nice.
You guys got a lot of smokers coming out of Strongsville? Like, what's going on over there?
You could have some, man. It's nice.
Great.
It's nice that they hooked you up with a guy and some Marlboros. That's awesome.
I know. I came in, it was like a haystack in there. I was like, what is going on? My whole life had been basketball, and then, this kid, Randy, we became good friends.
That's hilarious. That is
he had
funny.
a pack of Marlboros under the bunk. Don't be doing that in here, Randy. I'll whoop your ass.
Yeah, that's not a good situation when you're trying to get your career off to a good start.
Yeah,
hacking up a smoker's lung while you're trying to do some conditioning.
Yeah, I got enough going against me. I'm 6'1". I'm short. I'm white. People are like, "Oh, he's not that athletic."
Yeah.
You ever had somebody tell you you're sneaky athletic? Is
that wait.
No. I never had anybody tell me that ever.
Mike is sneaky quick.
Yeah, they'd always tell me
sneaky quick. Sneaky hops. Like, what does that mean, sneaky hops?
You're totally unathletic, is what I would get told. There was no sneaky athleticism.
Yeah, well, you're 6'4", 6'5".
Yeah, I got a little bit of. I guess I got another inch or two on you, so that helps.
At least.
Yeah,
you almost dunked in the alumni game. I was impressed.
Yeah, I almost touched the net. There was one time that I got up and I snatched that rebound from just about net level, and everybody was in shock.
There's a joke at basketball camp. The kids always ask him to dunk, and he jumps up and just grabs the bottom of the net, and he puts his hands in the air and starts yelling. It's pretty funny.
Kids love the flash, don't they? They love
do.
that dunk.
They love the dunk.
I can't give it to you, kids. I'm sorry.
They love the dunkers. That's probably more than even dunking in a game. Just the ability to, and you could probably relate to this when you go into gyms and certain places, and you're playing with guys, especially when I was younger. I always wished I could just go in and throw down a dunk or two to kind of impress everybody so I could get myself out of the court.
Yeah, get picked.
Right. Instead of having to play 2 or 3 games and make some shots and do some things and really show them you could play, I was like, if I could have just dunked, I could have got some instant credibility and got out on the floor a lot faster.
They made a movie about that. It's called White Men Can't Jump.
That's a good movie.
I'm actually thinking about actually creating that in my own life right now.
That'd be a good movie. You need the backwards hat. You could go Billy Ho.
Yeah.
That'd be great. I like
just show up, act like I'm nobody.
I like it.
Just put it on and make a couple hundred a day.
I like it a lot. So talk about your experience at Kent. So you went in as a freshman, obviously unheralded and kind of under the radar. And so then you get there, and what happens from the first day when you walk in there and you're like, okay, do you feel like you belong right away? Do you feel like it took you a while to get your feet underneath you? Where did you really start to feel like, hey man, I can do something here?
I almost quit. I remember being on the verge of quitting. Coach Waters I thought Coach Waters, first of all, I came in I thought I needed to be really strong, physically weigh a lot, muscle. I was using creatine. I was lifting like a bodybuilder, Jason. I was huge. My beach biceps were money. Everywhere I was going, I was getting looks, and from the ladies. And then all of a sudden, I got to Kent, and they were like, "You need to lose 25 pounds stat." And I was like, wait, what?
Whoops.
All this work that I had put in the weight room is actually, that's not what you want. And so pretty much I went from 210, 215. Coach Waters got me down to 185. And my mile time went from 6:30 down to 4:45. And it was I just remember feeling in the beginning of that process, I just remember being I can't get up. I cannot walk up the stairs to get into my dorm. I literally physically cannot move my body. How am I supposed to even think about playing basketball when I can't physically move my body? So it was kind of like a boot camp. I felt like I suffered so much, not only physically, but the mental part, because you want it so bad and you don't know if you're good enough. And so you kind of get attached to your performance rather than your effort. And that's why, I tell a lot of kids, if you're willing to suffer through a lot, usually you're going to be successful, because when people hit that dip or that suffering point and they give up, that's why the dip, that's kind of why the difference between somebody that makes it and somebody doesn't, somebody that can continue to kind of get into that, work through that grind and work through that suffering. Are you typically the ones that I think come out on the other side, like I did. I was not supposed to do that, but at the same time, I was able to suffer and get through it and keep pushing myself, and I was obsessed about it. I cared so much about making it to D1 that's what drove me, and I think I didn't know if I was good enough. I never thought I was good enough. I still probably look back and go, I'm not the all-time leading scorer. There's no way that happened, but it happened, and it just became, it became something that I think I just out suffered people and was able to build my game and build my career on just the work that I could put in, and obsessed basketball player that I was. I was just going to do whatever it took. And I mean, I wasn't the toughest mentally, but I think I put in the time to become a good player, a player that, could hit shot, become a pro. I mean, that was always my goal. My goal was, I remember writing down on a note card in 7th grade, I want to play professional basketball, and everybody laughed at me. Oh, look, right. You live in northern Michigan, Petoskey. It's a tiny town in northern Michigan. You've never had a Division I college player ever get a scholarship, and I always try to challenge my own beliefs about what's possible. So that was really cool. Do you think that
motivation? Yeah. Do you think that motivation came from inside you? Do you think it came from comparing yourself to other guys that you played against who maybe were already getting opportunities to play in college? Because I know for me that there was a lot of seeing guys that I played against, and if I can go back and I can name the 5 guys who were the Greater Cleveland top senior all-stars, and I know all their names still. I know what colleges they went to. I don't know all their college stats, but for the most part, I would guess mine are better than theirs. And and that's one of the things that drove me, was just trying to prove other people wrong as much as it was something internally for me. Not that, I mean, I had tremendous love for the game too, but there was that chip that was always on my shoulder.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a good mix there. I honestly found basketball to be therapeutic. There was nothing better for me than going to shoot by myself. When I was in high school, I just remember feeling so much serenity and peace when I would go shoot, and just kind of putting yourself in those, using your imagination. I think kids don't use their imagination enough to put themselves, envision what they want to become. If they see themselves hitting shots, then go work at, count down from 3 to,
right. Nobody does that because they're not in the gym, or they're not on the driveway the way kids were when we were younger.
They're playing Fortnite. That's what they're doing.
Yeah, they're getting skins or whatever that's called on Fortnite. I always tell kids at my camps, I'm like, who here has a lot of passion for Fortnite? They're like, who plays Fortnite? And then they all raise their hand. I'm like, who has yelled at the TV with so much passion and Fortnite? And then I'm like, now I'm going to ask you guys to bring some of that passion today in basketball, and you guys are going to get all scared and embarrassed because you want to be so cool. But I want you to play basketball like you play Fortnite. It's one of my greatest achieving moments of coaching was this summer. The place was going crazy. But yeah, that would I'd say that motivation of naming. I could think there was guys in my league that were going D1. There was guys downstate in Flint, Charlie Bell, Mateen Cleaves. I played against. I went and found the best players to compare myself to play against, because I wanted to know, how far behind am I? Where do I need to improve? What's my rubric for my game? Who am I measuring myself to? Because you guys know this. A lot of kids compare themselves to the 8th graders in their middle school and the 9th graders in their high school. Yep. And I always am like, I think that was just kind of wired into me. Basketball there's a ton of great players out there. The world of basketball players is growing and improving, and you need to measure yourself. You need to go find those players, and you need to look at it from a growth mindset and say, listen, I might not be as good as them now, but I'm going to go out there and compete and see what I need to improve on, and then go back to the drawing board in the gym and work on whatever I need. And that was kind of how I approached it. I honestly was not. I was not the all-time leading scorer in my high school. I can tell you that. When I got to Kent, nobody thought I was going to make it. So, I just really tried to focus on what I could control, and I passed. I remember feeling like, man, I'm passing these guys finally. I'm putting in the work and I'm passing them, and they have so much more talent than me, and it felt really good because I was focusing on effort. I was focusing on getting extra workouts in when they were going out to party. That I didn't drink until I was 25. There was like tons of, okay, maybe once, but there was, I never like got off track more than, one or two steps, and then I would get right back on my path of like, this is my plan, I'm sticking to it. So I don't know why I was that way.
Yeah, Mike and I had a conversation actually last night about this, and he actually said that he didn't have a drink until he was 25 either, and that was last night. He said that, and he basically said everything that you just said, that he was staying on task. He wanted to do what he was doing and didn't want to get distracted with it. He wanted to focus on basketball.
Yeah, I think there's just a single-mindedness of purpose.
Yeah,
especially when you look at guys who may be more genetically gifted than what. Than what I was, and I think that if you don't have that single-mindedness of purpose and just, again, like you've described, getting after it every single day and wanting to get in the gym and wanting to get better, and just like that was all I knew. I mean, that was what I did. I tell people all the time. My senior high school prom, I was at the local community college playing pickup basketball when all my friends were at the prom, and it wasn't. And it wasn't a sacrifice for me. I didn't look at it as, oh man, I'm getting cheated. That was where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And I think that's what enabled me to do the things that I did with, again, from an outside standpoint, a more limited talent than what maybe some other guys had. So I can totally, completely relate to the stories and the background that you're sharing with us, for sure.
Yeah. Are a lot of your listeners parents, or is it a good mix of like parents and kids? I mean, I
think it's a good mix. I mean, I think we're starting to get more coaches. Like we started a series here with local high school coaches. So we've done a couple interviews with two pretty big name high school coaches in the area, and we got more lined up. And so I think from that we're going to start getting more coaches. But we certainly have parents and kids listening too, and it's just we're excited about where this thing is going and what we're going to be able to do with it. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's cool.
So kind of going off of what you were talking about, if you had your Doc Brown and you were Marty McFly and you could go back in time, what is one thing that you know now that you wish you could tell yourself about training and preparing for basketball? Like it could be high school, college, and anything you think of.
That's really a good question. I would say you're capable of so much more than what you think. I worked really, really hard. I mean, there's no doubt. I think, but even as a young athlete, you tend to look at it from your perspective and your perspective only. Players, coaches, they always look at they see the game from how they played the game. And I think for me, I would tell young players to always, I would tell myself to always be seeking out new ways to grow my game. And what I mean is, going to find new players to play against, go find a new, track down one of the, find a new trainer. Like my dad, we tracked down the Pistons trainer when I was in high school. And I made a complete workout for myself based on what we went in, and he led me through workouts. And so I was always trying to do stuff like that as a kid, but I wish I would have done that more as I got into college. I felt like I kind of put myself on an island because I had that chip on my shoulder. And instead of collaborating with other people, collaborating with other trainers, collaborating with other coaches, to work on different things in my game to flush out the weaknesses, and also keep building my strengths even, stronger and stronger. I mean, I look back at my college, high school career, and I think, man, I was really good. I was really good team player. I was unselfish. But I never learned how to run pick and rolls. I never learned how to pass out of pick and roll until I was 26 or 27. Why is that? I didn't put myself in the position to go learn pick and rolls. I didn't seek out the best pick and roll passers in the game. I didn't call John Stockton. Why not? Like I always say, why not? Why not call John Stockton? Or Steve Nash, or those guys. I was so intimidated by other people's success that I kind of put myself on an island. And now I'm just like, there's no, now I love writing. I want to be a writer. I want to learn how to be a storyteller. So I want to call the story. I want to call people that are doing and talk to them and learn from them. And it's such a collaborative place, and I think basketball is the same way, and not to be afraid to seek out collaboration. Don't be afraid to seek out a player that you might compete against even, and say, hey man, I just want to work out or shoot or get a workout in. What do you do? And that kind of stuff. I think kids, coaches, don't put yourself on an island where, you stop that growth.
Yeah, I think that's an easy thing to do. And I could say certainly as a young coach, I was definitely guilty of that from a standpoint of, I came out and I'm like, I was a really good high school player. I played D1 basketball, and now here I am, and I'm coaching this JV team, and I know all there is to know. And I got my drills that my high school coach used, and I got my drills that we used at Kent, and I don't really need anything. And so I didn't go to coaching clinics. I didn't go and talk to guys who had been around the high school game for years and years. And I think as a result, for a while, I was probably pretty stagnant in terms of the way that I interacted with kids and what I tried to do with my teams. And now, as I've gotten older, I think you've made a great point for anybody in life, whether that's, again, a kid who's playing, a coach, a parent. If you want to get better at something, you have to go and seek out mentors and seek out new information and seek out new ways of doing things. Because, as you know, there's so much information out there that you can go through and try to learn from, and different people. And I think that's something that, we try to talk about all the time with kids that we interact with, is, using the game to learn those life lessons about how do I grow and how do I have that growth mindset that's going to get me to wherever I want to go in whatever my chosen profession or my chosen sport or my chosen activity is. And so I think that's a great point that you bring up there.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it took me way too long to say it, but yeah, it was a good point. No.
All right. So let's go back and wrap up your career at Kent. So you make a run to the Elite Eight, and I told people at the time, as I'm watching that unfold, the program that I played in, I could never imagine the program that I played in making it to the Elite Eight. It was just sort of unfathomable to me. So I really enjoyed the run, but I know that when I talked to you back in Chicago, you talked a little bit about how the transition from Coach Waters to Coach Heath was a little bit rough, because you had been with Coach Waters for the first 3 years, and you guys had a lot of success, and then he leaves and goes to Rutgers, and now Coach Heath comes in and wants to kind of implement his own thing, and yet you guys already had kind of built a championship culture there with the guys that you had. So talk a little bit about that transition, and then kind of how you guys righted the ship and then ended up going on your run.
Yeah. I would say, a big reason I was successful at Kent was because I felt comfortable there. And the reason I felt comfortable was there because I felt like we were a family. And that was a huge cultural value of ours with Kent, with Coach Waters. The stories we have, of running stadium stairs because one player missed in the morning individuals. The whole team ran, in the morning with 45-pound plates over their head going up and down stairs. So, kind of like, it really built this family atmosphere of, not only accountable for ourselves, but policing other players. And our accountability was really high. I think our work ethic was really high, and that our loyalty was really, really high. And I think when Coach Waters left, I had a hard time processing kind of the emotions and feelings of losing, somebody that basically had become like a father figure to me in many ways. He was somebody that I was fighting to earn time for in the beginning, and by the end, he had given me, basically the reins, the green light to run the team and to take big shots, and that had turned into, 2 NCAA tournaments and a lot of success for Kent. And then this new coach comes in, Stan Heath, and I'll never forget it. One of our first practices, it was like, what did you just call me? I was like, what? I looked at off to the side and I was like, did he just call me that? Was he talking to me or was he talking to the walk on? Cause I had, at that point, you have success and you start to look around like, hey, we did this, right. And a new coach.
Yeah. There's a pecking order.
Yeah. And this hierarchy of power struggle. And I mean, it wasn't, I think even back then people would probably say, well, Trevor, you were just stubborn. And I probably would agree. I didn't want to let go of what we had built with Coach Waters. I didn't want to let go of that feeling of family and all the values and culture that we had built. And, Coach Waters would never, cuss me out or do anything. He would, bring you in, talk to you and put you, tell you got to do this better, do that better. So it was just a different philosophy at first. And it took me a long time. One of the funniest stories was, Eric Hout, associate head coach at Kent. We talk about this stuff because when Stan came in, he's also under a ton of pressure. He's a first-year coach. He came under Tom Izzo, so I'm sure Tom Izzo, the way he coaches, is not he's going to tell you how it is. He's going to challenge you. He's going to verbally challenge you, and those type of players know that going in. I didn't sign up for that. If I had known, you know what I mean? If a coach comes in and I see him coach and that's who he is, and that you like that as a player, then okay, that's great. You signed up for it. You like that challenge of somebody cussing you out and challenging your manhood, then all right, cool. That's you. That's not me. That is not me. I am soft. I need somebody to be like, hey man, why don't you play harder? And I'll be like, yeah, you're right. Andrew Mitchell, for instance, he's just really good at just a great psychological player because he would just be like, he would challenge me psychologically rather than, just yell at me like a cookie cutter coach, treat every player is approached differently, I think, from a psychological standpoint. And Stan came in and was like, everybody's the same. And we started off, I think, 2-4. We had Antonio Gates. He was probably the most talented player on the team. I like to argue that he wasn't because I beat him in one-on-one all the time. He couldn't even, I was like, people don't want to. No, I'm just kidding. He was so good. And then, we just didn't have a good start. And we were learning his system. It was a pro system. There was sets. The ball was out of my hands. I didn't know what to do. I was like, oh my God, I have to do something else, with not having the ball in my hands. So it was a big learning curve. And I think the good news was that we all just, once we started losing, it was just team meeting, a lot of venting, a lot of emotions, a lot of processing. And then, and then it started to click. And when it started to click, that was, the result was an Elite 8, which probably should have been a Final 4, but we were just really, we got all on the same page. And I think that's what coaches want. Every coach wants their team to be on the same page, and however you want to get there, whatever values you have as a team, you want your cultures to live and breathe. You want your players to live and breathe that culture. And I think it took a while for Stan to do that with us, and it took us a while to do that with him. It's not an immediate process. It's not an overnight thing. So,
you mentioned, I have to ask this question. You mentioned Antonio, and I had it written down that I wanted to ask you. When you played basketball with him, could you have ever envisioned him playing to the level that he's played in the NFL and being, he's a Hall of Famer, I would think. He's got to be. So would you have ever thought Antonio Gates, Hall of Fame tight end?
I tell people this story. I've never been beat in a gut buster or a suicide by anyone that's not any guards have beat me, obviously, but never ever have I lost to a big man. I take pride in the fact that a 4 or a 5 get out of the way. You guys are too big. You're too slow. You're ugly. Like, just move over. Let the guards handle the business. And Antonio, I challenged Antonio once, and he beat me. And he beat me pretty easily. And I thought I was pretty fast. I'm sneaky quick. So that was crazy. And he sounded like he was like a freight train. I mean, when he got going. No, it doesn't. To be honest, it does not surprise me that, and it might surprise me that he's been doing it for this long at that high of a level. I think that's what surprises me.
And he just signed. He signed 2 days ago. He just signed a 1-year contract because the other guy blew his Achilles out or something. So
that's amazing because, and let me tell you, Antonio faked a heart attack one time in conditioning. He did not take. He was like 2 hamburgers away from being really out of shape. He was always like, oh, I can't do running. I can't. And then you look at his NFL career, and he's like a specimen. I don't know what changed. Maybe it was his approach to. He's a very competitive guy. He was a Golden Gloves boxer, in high school. So he had all these like tools. So it does make complete sense to me. And he told me, he went to Michigan State to play football on a scholarship. So I never saw him play football, but I saw him play basketball, and I was like, it's if you can run, rebound, cut, pass, steal, crossover, run transition and dunk, then I imagine those, those Tony Gonzalez has got, the Tony Gonzalez's of football, like Antonio's, he's perfect for that. So
that team, that loss to Indiana in the Elite Eight, does that one stick with you more than, now you've played, whatever, you had a 13, 14-year career playing overseas, and you've obviously played hundreds, if not thousands of games. Does that loss stick with you more than
I've never
other
seen
ones,
the tape.
or no?
I'll never watch it. It'd be fine if I never see that video. Maybe I'll watch it like when I'm like 85.
So I'm assuming your answer is yes. That one sticks with you.
That one sticks with me. There's some definite. That's a really, really hard thing to do. You guys know the NCAA tournament.
Absolutely.
You think about all the odds and the luck that's involved, the shots that go in, and we were one. We came up against a team that we did not want to see Indiana, to be honest. We beat them the year before. There was there's some motivation. There's intrinsic motivation on their part. And they set an NCAA record in 3-point shooting. Our scouting report was, I thought we did a pretty good job. We left the shooters that, we shaded everybody we wanted to shade, and the guys that never shoot threes shot threes and made them. So it was just one of those nights that you couldn't probably draw up again for them, but it was tough. It was a tough loss, and I'm trying to think. There was one other one in Belgium that I was with a team for 3 years, and it was one of my favorite teams I ever played on was Okapi All-Stars, they're called. And they came from the second division. And in Europe, you play, it's like soccer. You have a domestic league, so your Belgian league. It's like just like college basketball. You have Division 1, Division 2, Division 3. And Division 1,
you get relegated in basketball too?
Yeah, and you get relegated. The bottom teams get relegated, and the top 2 teams in Division 2 come up to the top league, Division 1. So there's always this heated competition at every single game. It's like the NFL. Everybody's fighting for position. Nobody wants to get relegated. Everybody wants to move up. And then if you become a top 4 team in your domestic league, then you qualify for international play as Euro League, Euro Challenge, Euro Cup. And that's where, now you're playing once or twice a week. You have NBA names. I got to play against Patrick Beverley. I got to play, who else? Just like guys that you see in the NBA. I can't think of any other names because I'm old. But so you get to get all this exposure to play in these different leagues, different competitions. And we lost one year. We lost the Belgian Cup on a half-court bank shot. And I was just like, that hurt. That really hurt. And I was at that time playing my best basketball. I was happy. I was runner-up MVP of the league and then coach's MVP the next year. So it was just like a really good time for me. I was winning a ton, and we qualified for international play. So that one really hurt too.
Yeah, I think the losses, I mean, I tell people all the time that the losses definitely stick with me far more than the victories do. I tend to remember those losses much more than I remember the victories. So it's always interesting to hear guys that, have played at a high level talk about which games stick with them more than others. And I know for me that those losses definitely hang much heavier on me than the
they're heavy, man.
Wins. They really are. Like they're things that you can go back to, and you never get a second chance to play Indiana again. It just that chance. Yeah. There was one chance, and the chance is gone. You can never make that up. And I think that's what really sticks with you as a player is those losses and the lost opportunity that just again it's never coming back. And those are the things that stick with you. Next question. Let's move on from Kent to.
You want to talk about my love life?
Yeah, sure. Why not? How's that going?
That's off top. We can't go there. Right. Not on the air.
It's not for kids.
All right. Once we get off.
Nobody needs to know.
Once we get off the podcast, we can chat.
My mom texts me. She's always looking out, trying to set me up on blind dates. And I'll tell you, fellas, there's nothing worse than your mom who's is trying to set you up on dates that you have there's no reason that that should ever happen. So all the single guys out there,
she just has your best interest. She's looking out for her kid, man. Come on.
She is. I can't. I actually put her through a filtering process now. She has to actually go through my younger brother, and then he like filters them. I kind of have a checklist of like qualities that they have to have, like.
And then eventually, once they get through the screening process, and then they get to you, huh?
That's right.
All right. Well, hey, that's the way. That's what you got to do. That's the way it works. I totally understand. My mom used to try to set me up occasionally, back in the day, and that never worked either. So I can relate. I'm definitely.
My mom thinks every single woman is my future wife. It's like if she's nice and she smiles. All you have to do is smile to my mom's like, oh no, you should meet my son. He's a professional. He's a professional. She always calls me her professional player. I'm like, Mom, I don't play basketball anymore. I've been done for 3 years. Like if anything, I'm a professional. I'm a professional triathlete.
Hey, you can still trade. Hey, you can still trade on your strengths. Come on.
That's true. Yeah.
So when you were overseas, what was your favorite country? What was your favorite country you played in?
It's hard because when you first get over there, when you're 22,
right? It's a different feel.
Man, it's such a different feel. Like if I could go back in time again, if I knew what I know now, and I could go back, I think my whole career would change. In Europe, it's hard to be. The hardest thing about playing professional basketball in Europe is not the basketball. It's the cultural adjustment. It's the loneliness. It's the being homesick, especially early on in your career. It's not knowing anybody. It's not knowing the language. You feel completely detached from the world. It's just it's at least for me. I mean, I'm introverted until I'm comfortable. So I'm one of those guys that if I feel comfortable, I play better. I'm more natural. I'm a better leader. And when you're 22, you don't really have the perspective to know like, hey, I got to go out and meet people and make a comfortable life for myself and make friends. And that was a really hard lesson for me. So I started in Germany, which would have been awesome, 10 years after my rookie year. But the fact of the matter was I was 22 and I hated it. I hated Germany. I was like, this is terrible. The food here, it's just all potatoes. So then I came back, I tried out for the NBA, and then eventually I got cut twice and ended up playing in the CBA because I just couldn't do it. I went to Poland. I gained like 25 pounds. I just completely lost my passion for basketball. And a lot of it was because I wanted to play in the NBA so bad, and I put all my eggs in that basket. And I think when you attach yourself to one result and it doesn't happen, every other result is not going to motivate you. So instead of being in a place of like gratitude and humility that I got to live in Europe and play professional basketball, I was in like a bitter, depressed, sad state, and especially in Poland. And that kind of caused me, I gained 25 pounds. I got imagine this, I was a short point guard that weighed 225 pounds. In Poland, my stats went from like 19 a game down to 12 and literally like 5 months. And I never like tied it together that I was like, hey, by the way, you gained 25 pounds, you fat ass.
I could hold you back.
I thought maybe you were taking that creatine again. I didn't know.
No, that was straight pierogies. That was straight pierogies and beer at that point. I just kind of gave up on training. It was weird. I was apathetic towards the game. And for the first time in my life, I dealt with a new type of adversity, which had nothing to do with, really had nothing to do with basketball. It had to do everything with culture and accepting where you are and accepting the fact that you have to make the best of the situation, and you have to go out and be uncomfortable. And you're living in an uncomfortable, you're living in this. You're living in a new world. And Poland was tough. That was very depressing. It was kind of an oppressed attitude there. I thought like a tank was going to roll through town at one point. Like it was like World War II. Like the concentration camps I went to, it was just heavy. It is something that you can't ever imagine until you go walk through a concentration camp, and go see it and go feel that energy there. And it, that's how Poland was to me. It felt like they were still stuck in this like Cold War, World War II, like, people were still recovering. It was crazy. So that was tough. Then I went to Belgium, played in the CBA, came back to Portugal, loved Portugal, started to have a little bit more fun, got less focused on the NBA thing and just started to focus on, I want to be the best point guard in every league I play in. I remember saying that the beginning of every year, I was like, I will be the best point guard in this league. I will lead the league in assists. And those were kind of like my numerical stats. And then my performance goals were always, work out, do extra work on top of our regular practice schedule. I always did like extra sand workouts. I was a huge advocate of doing ladder sand workouts. And then go work out in the weight room right after that. So I was always like pushing myself in different ways as I got into Portugal, Belgium, and then finally France. And I would say Belgium was my favorite culturally, and then France was my favorite aesthetically. Like France is beautiful, but I don't know if have you guys been to France lately?
I've not been to France.
I've been to France 5 or 6 times. My aunt and uncle actually live in London, so like we would go take the channel over because the beer in France is much cheaper than the beer in England. So what my uncle would do is be like, we're going to France today, and we would take the channel and literally not go outside the city right next to where the channel goes and just buy a boatload of beer and bring it back to England.
That's good stuff. I didn't know that. That's a fun fact.
Yeah, it's he saved a lot of money doing that. So
interesting. The French. Yeah, I always feel like the French were like I was taking a test that I didn't know the answers for. Like what are you guys talking about? Like why are you not being friendly to me? And they're friendly enough, I never felt like I had the answers to their test or that I could become close friends with them. And Belgium was like my experience in Belgium was very parallel to my experience in Kent. It became family culture. I played for a team that I became really, really attached to, and in Ulst. And we knocked, all the expectations that we had were just to stay in the first division. And we ended up essentially knocking on the door to be one of the top 3 teams and win the league every year. And that was really cool just to be a part of it. And the people there take you in. And like I could go to Belgium right now and I could stay there for months at a time and people would just let me sleep in their guest bedrooms. And that's the type of people they are. If I went to France, I would be laying on the side of the street.
Underneath the Arc de Triomphe.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody's taking care of me there.
So you still have, I'm assuming then you still have guys and teammates that you still are in touch with from over in Europe, from the various places that you that you stopped, and you still are in touch with them. Mm-hmm. That's very cool. So here's a question that I like to ask, and obviously over the course of time, I've known different people that have played over in Europe, and everybody inevitably that I've talked to has one just crazy European basketball story that they've told me, something that happens with the fans or traveling to a game or just the coach yelling at you in some foreign language or whatever the case may be. So what's your craziest European basketball story?
Oh man, God, I have so many. I'll tell one. I played in Venezuela one summer. My agent got me this job, and I was kind of in that time where I was a little chunky, Jason. I got down 225, 215. I was feeling pretty good. And it was summer. It was like summertime. I was hitting Venezuela. I was like, first of all, the women in Venezuela are the most beautiful women in the world. Nobody told me that going in. I would have tried to drop a few more lbs. Just
go do those sand workouts, man.
Yeah.
Sand workouts.
I did. Yeah, exactly. I wasn't on those sand workouts early enough. And so when I got there, they handed me a manila check for $10,000, and I was like, "This is the best thing I've ever. This is the best like league I've ever played in." And so now I have like $10,000, and I'm sitting, and like I went out and started going out to eat, and it was like $1, for a meal in the U.S. terms, and I was like, "What? This is a great, like, you're telling me my expenses here are going to be, like $5 a day to eat like a king, And I started drinking espresso, and I played 3 games in Venezuela with Caracas Delfines, the Caracas Dolphins, and it was wild. Like, the crowd was insane. It was like a cement box gym, hot, no air conditioning, and it was just super loud. There was probably like 5,000 people, and it was just wild. Like, I remember my first game coming out and being like, if we don't win, they might just be like, put him on a stick, put his head on a stick outside the gym. Like, and it just seemed like it had this really crazy energy. And I remember the owner had like 10 bodyguards of our team, because kidnapping's a real threat there. I don't know if you guys knew. I was oblivious to this. I was like walking around the city at night, like, this is the best.
Meanwhile, in South America, Americans are disappearing every day.
As the kids say, I was like YOLOing. I was going home. I was just having fun. I got fired 2 games later. They handed me another manila envelope of $10,000, and they were like, "All right, thank you for your services." And I was like, "What the heck?" And and instead of like, at that point, I was like, anything can happen in pro basketball. I'm getting, everything is just wild. So instead of going back home, I take the money and I just like, I'm going traveling. So I went traveling on a bus. It was just a terrible idea. I went to the bus station. I just like picked a city on the coast on the other side of Venezuela. So I go from like, Caracas to the other side, the Pacific side, and it was one of the coolest trips I'd ever taken. So and I just remember blowing my money.
You played 3 games and they paid you $20,000.
It was the best thing. It was the best 2 weeks of my life, and
that's awesome.
There's nothing better than a 2-week season.
Oh God! I mean, if I could have just maintained that pace of money making, who knows? Who knows? So that was a cool story. And we've had in Belgium, we had a very passionate fan base. I remember fans coming out to fight other players, and then like the ref, literally like a fan like what happened with the Indiana Pacers, literally like happened once a month in Belgium. Like to play, like the fans
are on the crowd, are on the court.
Oh yeah, like if we lost a close game and the refs, might have made a questionable call. I felt like the refs, like there's hooligans. There's literal hooligans in Europe, and I wouldn't want to mess with the hooligan base. Like, so you got to, you do need to be, in Greece, they don't even let you play. They don't even let fans in the gym sometimes because the rivalries are so dangerous. Players fights start, fans throw stuff. Yeah, I remember I got hit with a battery once in the eye. I was like, who has a battery? Like a AA hit me. I was like,
who's carrying the batteries into the gym?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
So, yeah, stuff like that. I mean, nothing too crazy, but
That's very cool. I mean, I think like I said, anybody that I've ever talked to that's played over there has one or two stories that just, are along those same lines of just the fans are crazy and the traveling around and the when you get paid and how you get paid situations are always interesting. So I always like hearing those stories from people. Talk a little bit about your two tryouts with the Knicks and with the Suns, and I know you just recently wrote the blog post about the Suns tryout that I thought was really well written, and I really enjoyed
it's
that.
It's high school level writing.
How about that air ball right at the end of that blog post?
What's funny is Sean Marion hit me up on Instagram, and he said, "Hey man, good article, funny story," and I was like. Shaking my head like, it wouldn't have been fun if I hit that goddamn shot.
Right. Yeah, if I would have made it right. If I would have made it over top of you, it wouldn't have been quite as funny. The NBA. I'm going back, and I think a big reason I love writing is because it feels therapeutic to me. And I think one of the when you get done playing sports, you're like, well, what do I do? I'm completely, what do I put my energy into? What feels good to me? What am I naturally curious about? And I think a lot of kids, that are out there, I always the parallels from sports to life are if you understand that the dip and the struggle and the suffering, it's going to happen in any profession. The challenges, the problems they're going to be in every single thing that you do. So you're either going to really be in something that you love to do, and you're going to encounter those challenges and barriers and plateaus and suffering and obstacles, or you're going to pick something that you don't love to do, and you're going to challenge those same things. And I'm always like, what would you prefer? So I think that's a really, for me, to be able to use writing and kind of approach my writing the same way that I did basketball, and the suffering and the struggle of getting cut from the NBA teams, that was a really tough time for me. That, I really, really wanted to make the NBA. I sprained my ankle with the Knicks. I had made the summer league team. I was playing really well. I had a year of Germany under my belt. I was really, really playing well, and top, one of the top scorers in the German league. The last half of the season, just turned it on, and so I came and got to try it with the Suns and the Knicks, and I sprained my ankle with the Knicks in the summer league, and then the vets camp with the Suns. I got that story, which I wrote. It was one of those things that I felt really humbled to be there, to get to play with all, seeing Penny Hardaway. I literally was just couldn't talk, and then he wasn't even good.
At that point, he was checked out, man.
He was just making money, and he was super cool. He was super cool to me. And you just get to see these larger than life personalities that you watch, that you pick. You guys are picking these guys on their fantasy teams, and I'm like, I'm in the locker room with them, listening to them talk about their Ferraris and what kind of car they're driving. And
not the RAV4.
Not the RAV4. It had all-wheel drive. I mean, people hate on it. What happens if a zombie apocalypse comes? I'm the one getting out of the city with the gas mileage, not them.
That's right.
That's right. Yeah.
So, I think those stories for me, they're really important to remember. It's getting harder for me to remember them. So some of it, I'm like, I think this is what happened. I'm pretty close. I'm pretty sure. And then I'm like, no. And then somebody will say a comment. I'm like, yeah, you're right. That's what happened. But, that's. I'm kind of getting off track. But those NBA things they were good and bad. It was at the time, it didn't feel like a gift to get cut from the NBA, but it really was a gift to play in Europe and to live in these different cultures and learn how to travel and learn how to accept people and collaborate and eat Polish sausages and eat pierogies and
gain 25 pounds.
Gain 25 pounds. Learn how to handle my live on my own in a country that nobody speaks English in. I don't think a lot of people could suffer through that. And I know there's a lot of talented basketball players that have failed because of their inability to embrace a new culture and embrace new people. And that could be a new team, that could be a new players, that could be a new coach. Like all those lessons that you learn, that was a gift.
And so do you think that's why now, I know one of the themes that kind of runs through your blog is the idea of the impact that travel has on you specifically, but just people in general. Do you think that's where that came from?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, one of the big topics is I think kids really struggle with this is being who they are. If you really love basketball, don't let anybody deter you from putting in your work and being different. Like everybody gets judged so harshly for who they are and what they are. And, especially kids, they're hard on, like I used to walk around high school with strength shoes on. I didn't care. I cared, but I didn't care. You have to like choose what you care about more, So yeah, I was embarrassed, but you know what? What else didn't embarrass me? Scoring 35 points on Brent Darby, who went to Ohio State. Like I was motivated to, have, you know what I mean? So it was like, I was an underdog. So I always had this underdog mentality. And I think the pieces on writing and traveling and just kind of, I love the weird part of life too. I think I'm drawn to those stories of people, whoever you are, if you're if you're a chef, you started your own business, my head start, like what makes you successful? What drives you to be a part of kids' lives and coach kids? And I think that is fun for me because I get to connect with people and I figured out my strengths and it took me a while.
I think being yourself is a huge thing. You and I, by the way, might have been the only two people in America that wore the strength shoes because I had a pair too when I was a kid. And I actually
there's a lot of parallels here.
There is, man. It's crazy. I had a friend who he ended up playing football at Michigan State. He was a tight end, and he was obviously a good athlete if he was playing tight end at Michigan State, but was not an explosive athlete. So he and I were very similar in that mode. And I remember we were so excited when we both went out and got him, and we had the pamphlet that had the workouts. And
it's like a new pair of Jordans, except the strength shoes.
Right. So we're playing, we're playing one-on-one, and we're expecting, all right, we're going to put these on, and 15 minutes later, I'm going to be throwing down all kind of dunks. And I know that for me, I think I was so ground-bound, there was pretty much nothing I could have done that was going to make much of a difference.
Ground-bound.
Those things.
I've never heard that term, ground-bound. I like that.
Well, that was me, man. That was definitely me. So that's hilarious. When I was looking over your stuff over the last couple of days and I saw the photo of the strength shoes in the blog, I'm like, we got to throw that out there and talk about that, because there weren't very many people that were wearing those. And I think, the other thing that you said there that really struck a chord with me is teaching kids the importance of being themselves, whether that's, again, basketball, or whether it's the violin, or whether it's someone who grows up to be a business person or be a writer, or whatever the case may be. When I was in high school, I had this bucket hat that a guy gave to me that was somebody that he was an adult who I played basketball with when I was 13 or 14, just up at the courts. And at some point, he gave me this hat and really loved the hat. And I wore the hat all through high school. I would wear it to school. I'd wear it after school. And of course, at that time, I don't think there was anybody else anywhere wearing a bucket hat. And I remember when I made the varsity team as a sophomore, there were kids who were seniors whose friends were on the team that I was playing in front of. And there was one kid who always used to make fun of me for the hat. And I remember one time being out at the bus and him just looking at me from like 15 feet away and just screaming at me, "Clemson, take off the stupid hat." And me just, looking at him and just keeping the hat on. And it's one of those things that I always go back to, and I'm like, why didn't I take off the hat? What was it about it that made me keep it on? And part of it was just, it was important to me, and it kind of represented, me playing out at the courts and whatever. And so I never took it off. And for some reason, I had that inner strength to keep it on. And I think that's something that I try to impart to kids, just like you are, that, you got to do the things that you believe in, and you got to be able to put your head down on the pillow and sleep at night and be who you are. And I think if you do that, you're going to end up with a lot more successful life, a lot happier life as you go forward. So I
feel bad for kids, man. I mean, we didn't have to worry about checking in, getting ripped on social media, where it becomes, it becomes a viral thing. Like if somebody had taken a picture of me walking down the hallway in my strength shoes and like posted it
Right.
on Instagram,
I think it'd still be around today.
Oh,
it'd be a meme. It'd be a GIF. It'd be whatever you want it to be.
Like, who does this kid think he is? But yeah, I don't know what I would have done. I think that's just it. I have parents write me and they tell me thanks. Their daughter read something about, she gets made fun of because she's quiet or because she likes to shoot baskets at lunchtime instead of talk to the other girls. And like, I think that is, that's the mentors and coaches and teachers out there and people that invest with the youth. I mean, it's so important now because kids have so many distractions and they have so much comparing and viral comparing, online tattoo. It's essentially an online tattoo. When you say something, kids don't know how important that stuff is, to be kind and be open to, other kids and other teams and other race, religion, everybody. And I think, and that can mess up your college career. Like, I know college coaches that literally go through and look for, Instagram posts or Twitter posts of like, what is their character, and what kind of people are they? I think more and more that's what coaches are looking for.
Yeah, I think you're 100%. I think you're 100% right, and I know that you're a big believer in that and teaching kids life lessons and character, and that's the same thing that that we do here, and it's just a huge part of what I think when you get to the age that we are, and you're a little younger than me, but at the same time, I think you want to be able to give back and you want to be able to make an impact on kids, and that there's been coaches and adults and teachers that have had that kind of impact on you, that have set you on a path that's led you to where you are today. And I think that's one of the things that we try to do every single day, is just to have an impact on kids and help them to understand that basketball can teach you a lot of lessons that are going to be applicable to you from the time you're 10 all the way up until the time you're 90, and it's just a huge piece of what we try to do. So let's finish up here with a couple quick questions about kind of what you're doing now and where you see yourself going in the future. So talk a little bit about your Huffman Basketball Academy and what you have going with that, and then we'll jump into HoopsLink in a second.
Okay. Yeah. Where I grew up in North, I was born in Flint, moved to Grand Blanc, then I transferred up to Petoskey. My parents split up, and so I lived with my mom up in Petoskey, which is essentially paradise on earth in the summer. So I would just come home from college and go, talk about, it's an easy place to gain weight, fellas. It's really easy up there. You can kind of get fat and sassy. There's really good restaurants up there. So anyway, I would go back up there and run the Trevor Huffman Basketball Academy, which now is, I did that since 2002. I'd run it with my, at that time, my buddy John Flynn, who was the kid that I played basketball with every day as a kid. He went on to play professionally as well. He accepted a scholarship at Division II at Grand Valley State, and I held out. They offered us both, and I didn't take it. And it was like a really weird time because everybody was like, "Oh, you're going to play with your best friend, right?" And I was like, "No, I'm actually not. I'm going. I have my sights set on D1. I don't care what anybody says." And there was a lot of friction. I remember my mom being so pissed that I didn't take a scholarship. She's a single mom.
Sure. I can see your mom being really upset.
Oh, she was so mad at me when they came in and offered me a scholarship at dinner table, and I was just like, Coach, I'm not ready to sign. And he kind of put like the pressure cooker on me. He's like, we're going to offer this to you right now, and if you sign it right now, it's for you. And kind of playing mind games. And right. I was just like, I was like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to take the scholarship right now. And so my mom freaks out, and I told her, listen, I'm not only trying to do something for myself, but I also want to try, I'm also trying to be a role model for my little brother. At that time, he was 6 years younger than me. And he was really into basketball, and I kind of work with him and say, what are your goals? What do you want to achieve? And he said he wanted to play D1 too. and he wanted to play college basketball. And so I always trained him. I always coached him and put a lot of effort into, I was pretty tough on him, tough love. I made him wake up with me. I made him work out really, a day after a game, I would say, listen, we're going to be in the gym tomorrow twice, or, this is your workout plan for today. So I was always building workouts and designing workouts and trying to look at his game and figure out what would allow him the opportunity to play at the highest level. What are his strengths? What are his weaknesses? What can we flesh out through training? And in the meantime, then I went, Kent State, Europe, and he got the opportunity to go play at Brown University, and he was very underlooked, very undervalued guard, and he went on to be all-time three-point shooting leader there, and now he's playing professionally. He played professionally in Europe for 6 years, and now he's the number one ranked player in 3-on-3 FIBA, which is an Olympic sport in 2020, and he also is the president of a healthcare company. So, I felt always very strongly about mentoring and being, a role model for him, and I think that just carried on into Huffman Basketball Club, or, what I did with kids, and that's evolved, now into. I'm here in Chicago. I run it up in Petoskey mostly in the summer. I do camps and clinics for all the kids up north, and just try to get them, teach them the values that will make them successful on the court and off the court. And that's number one. That's my number one priority. And then also just kind of helping the kids that you see that natural drive and talent. And I love working with those kids. That's always something that I love to do. So like my brother, I mentor kids. I watch high school tape. I'll send them video, I'll send them feedback. So I do stuff like that. And then in Chicago, I do adult basketball fitness classes, which is a new thing. It's a hybrid. You guys would probably love it.
Yeah, I know when we first talked, you brought that idea to me. At first I was like, oh man, it seems like there might be a limited clientele. And then the more I've thought about it, and the more you and I have talked, I think that there's a lot of potential there for guys that again are like us who played the game when they were younger, missed the game, don't really have as many opportunities to get involved and do it, to get out there and participate. So why don't you talk a little bit about what that looks like? Yeah, just so people can get an idea, because I think it's something that even if you're a coach or you're a parent, you probably aren't even aware that something like this exists. So I think people will be interested to hear what it's all about.
Well, I just, I've always loved the skill development aspect. I never really got into head coaching, where I was a head coach of a team, but I was always more of like a micro, like looking at somebody's skills. Like my little brother, I could say, no, that is not going to work the way you're coming off that screen and shooting. It's just, you're never going to have enough. You're never going to get enough space. You're never going to have enough time at that tempo. Your shot has a hitch in it. So I've always loved the skill development stuff. So as you guys know, when you get done playing basketball, you come to this crossroads of like fitness. The word fitness to me, the gym. What does that mean to me now? That means absolutely nothing, because what am I competing for? Like right. The six. Yeah. Oh, nice abs, bro.
Yeah, that's a huge. That's always been a huge struggle. For me, just in terms of when I was playing, you were so focused on, I'm in shape, I'm doing all these things because there's a goal ahead of you, and once that goal is gone, it just becomes a different. It just becomes a different way of looking at things. Now I look at fitness as how can I be the most efficient as I possibly can and get what I need to do to maintain at least a decent shape in the shortest amount of time possible. I remember when I was playing, this is another short aside before you get back to what you were talking about, but I used to play pickup basketball in this health club, and right outside the doors where the gym was, there were all these ellipticals and bicycles and treadmills, and I used to be playing basketball. This is when I'm 16, 17, 18 years old. And I'd look out and I'd see these guys who were 40, 45, 50, and they'd be on these elliptical machines and treadmills. And I would just think to myself, those poor guys, like that is just the most torturous thing I could ever imagine. Like, why don't they just go play basketball? What is their problem? And now, of course, I'm the guy who's on those machines and, doing that because I see now that it's like I got to get my workout in 40 minutes and I just don't have time to go out and play basketball.
He's being bashful here, though, because that Kent State alumni game may have reinvigorated him. I just want to point that out.
I bet.
He's thinking about it. He's thinking of coming out of retirement. So
that's what hoops. Right now we're called HoopsLink, but we might be rebranding here. But yeah, this is exactly why I thought that there was a chance for this hybrid. I mean, it's basically just taking the game of basketball and breaking it down into games and shooting games and things that you can track individually and as a team inside of an hour fitness workout with a basketball in your hand. So you're essentially, I'm taking everything that I used to do as an athlete, ladders, jump ropes, med balls, bands, mini bands, and it all becomes part of this practice plan that lasts an hour. It's very, very high intensity. There's music, and basically just want to get those same guys that are on the elliptical and the stationary bikes that are just kind of zoned out and not talking to anybody. I always felt like what helped me be accountable felt being part of a community, being kind of in that team feel. And that's kind of what I needed for myself to get back into fitness, because I had a really hard time deciding that, like, okay, my life is going to be the stationary bike for the rest of my life. Like, it just, that's not it's a really tough realization for athletes, and as they get older. And so what I decided, I did this in New York. I lived in New York, and I put out I think I'm very experimental in terms of like trying new things. And I was like, you know what? I bet you adults that didn't play in college would love to, why would I go pay for golf lessons or go to a triathlete camp to learn how to swim? But nobody out there's no adult basketball classes, fitness classes or anything like that. So I started to turn that kind of idea around, and I said, well, why not try it? So I just started a meetup group in New York. I put it up, and I think within 3 months I had 300 people signed up for my meetup group. I was having 15 to 20 people at a class, and people loved the idea of training like a basketball player. Like, for a day you get to train like KD or Russell Westbrook or LeBron James. I can guarantee you 100% that it's more fun than that treadmill workout or that 1 hour, that 30-minute bike ride. So that's my job, is designing the workouts to be fun, to be fast, to feel like a college practice. I want people to be reminded of what it feels like to be on a team, and and smile and sweat with your kind of your teammates again and compete. So you guys, you get to shoot, you get to hit game winners every day that you work out, and I think that is fun for people. It's not a perfect product yet. We're not franchising yet, but the goal is to go national with it and become a viable, fitness solution for former basketball players.
Yeah, it's awesome. And you guys, right now, you're in Chicago and Boston, correct?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So how many classes per week are you guys offering in both of those places?
So we've gotten up to 5 classes in Chicago and then 1 in Boston. And so it's been pretty, we haven't done any marketing. We have just really kind of been working on the branding and our going through what's our purpose, what's our mission statement, what's our vision statement, and then also we just changed our name, so that's kind of slowed us down. So now we're just I'm the head coach, the head trainer of the coaches, and kind of in charge of the what happens on the court. So, but I'm also really interested in startups, like what makes a good startup. Why is Head Start so successful? Why does Huffman basketball not? What can I learn from the startup industry and from marketing standpoint? And I just find it all pretty interesting, and I get to write about all that on the side, so I spend a ton of my time writing and then working on the startup and then traveling.
Yeah, I mean, all that stuff I think are things that, again, as you get older, that you appreciate much more when you were younger and you're more singularly focused on your basketball career. and now you've had an opportunity to kind of branch out, and you got your writing, you got your business side of it, you've got that inquisitive mind that goes out and looks for stories, looks for things that you can write about, looks for things that you can share, and looks for ways to impact. And I think that's just a huge piece of what's made you who you are today. I know that you and I really only connected probably less than a year ago, right? That we first kind of connected, and again, as anybody who's listened to this podcast, I think can sort of see and hear the similarities kind of in our backstory. Not that they're completely identical, but I think there's a lot of similarities. And I know that the things that you just described are things that have interested me. It's one of the reasons why we're sitting here today doing the podcast. I've had it on my list of things to get done, and now here we are sitting and making it a reality. And it's just an exciting time to be a part of what we're doing, because there's just so much out there to learn, and the world's a huge place, and the opportunity to grow and talk to interesting people and just again have an impact on coaches, parents, players through the game of basketball is something that I love. So we really appreciate you jumping on here today, Trevor. Is there anything else that we haven't touched on that you want to share with our audience?
No, I mean, a shameless plug.
Absolutely. Tell us how people can get a hold of you if they want to get in touch, and where can they read your stuff? Yeah,
they can always read it at trevorhuffman.com. I write on medium.com. That's a blogger platform, where there's a lot of great writers that write on hundreds of different topics. Again, I think I use it more as a learning tool. I read writers on there all the time, and I'm just like, it's a little bit less polished, a little bit more authentic, a little bit more vulnerable writing, but the pieces are really good. I've learned a lot from. I've been contacting the top writers and also trying to learn what makes them, what helps them, how did they become such great writers. So that is great. Check those out if you, more than welcome to read my what I call my infantile writing skills at the moment. But I really am just excited to put effort into something and that I really enjoy and grow that. So you guys are more than welcome to do that. And then once we get the adult fitness thing going, hopefully we get one down there in Ohio, and I can come down and run a few classes and check it out, and check out hoopslink.com. And thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, Trevor. This has been awesome. To all of our audience out there, make sure you jump on trevorhuffman.com. Make sure you jump on and check out HoopsLink. I think it's going to be something that, as he gets it going, I think it's going to be a big thing. So we appreciate you jumping on with us, and we will catch everyone on our next episode. Thanks.
Head Start Basketball's Player Development Academy offers Cleveland area players a unique opportunity to improve their basketball skills. Regardless of a player's age, skill level, or position, training with Head Start Basketball will elevate your game to the next level. Do you want to improve your ball handling, become a better shooter, or develop into a more skilled, confident player? Our Academy classes offer training that's designed to do just that. Our training sessions are innovative and will have you learning skills that are transferable to actual games. We have 4 different class skill levels for boys and girls, ages 4 and up. All Player Development Academy classes will be held at the Strongsville Recreation Center. For more information or to get registered, please visit www.headstartbasketball.com.
Thanks for listening to the Hoop Heads podcast, brought to you by Head Start Basketball.